I want to do a video that was given to me by request. Somebody wanted to know, and other people have asked me this as well, about what to do when you're in the first world. Now, I have stated that I do not believe that there is going to be a revolution in the first world so long as it maintains its first world status. Meaning, once things have broken down, there's a terrible crisis, then it is possible that a revolution could be carried out. Now, the problems that I see is the lack of people who are actually revolutionary. Now, we should separate the difference between people who are who could be revolutionaries and the pool of people that can be made into revolutionaries as a result of particular material conditions. So I think that's two separate things that we need to understand. There are certain communities within the United States that have the potential to be revolutionary. Now, it's not just simply that they're poor or their lives suck and that therefore they're going to be revolutionary. That's really not all of it. They have to actually want a revolution. Their belief, they have to not believe in the system. And I think that's a part of what people fail to understand when looking for revolutionary masses in the first world. The Black Panther Party is the old one, the one from way back. That's a good example of people who were revolutionaries, who could have led people that were potentially revolutionaries under the right conditions. And I think that their use of Marxism-Leninism and the application of Mao's theory in this idea were correct for the time that it existed. Now, there are things that certainly you can criticize the Black Panthers for, but I think overall they were the correct people, the correct revolutionary leaders for the correct people at the correct time. And I think that's important to keep in mind. Now, what I think is that, in my personal opinion, as a third worldist and the revolutionary scientific outlook I have, is that these groups should first and foremost work towards helping people in the third world. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and join them on the battlefield. In fact, the vast majority of third world revolutionary groups are not going to want someone from the first world to come in and physically fight. We're out of shape. We don't speak the language. Frankly, if you don't have a massive ego, you would recognize that you're not prepared to live the way that they live. I mean, like you're not prepared to live as a regular third world person, let alone a gorilla in these places. And a lot of people shoot off their mouths saying that they would totally do it. One particular organization, the Socialist Rifle Association, said that if the U.S. started backing Rojava, they would run off and join them. Now, aside from that being incredibly problematic, they didn't do it. Now, I think what's important to see here is that one of the most important things here we can do is get money to them. For example, the Communist Party of Swaziland, which is one that I'm in contact with, it wouldn't even take very much. Like 100 US dollars is almost like $1,000 there. So if you could even just scrape together like $100 from a bunch of people, get 5 people to donate $20. That's nothing. That's pocket change for us. And send that to them every month, that would be a godsend. They would be so eternally grateful for that. And that would be incredibly helpful. And all it is pocket change. You don't even have to do any mass fundraising or anything like that. And it's such a small thing you can do. And that's a thing that I keep seeing. People saying, oh yeah, I would die for the cause. Okay, can you spare $20 for the organization? Oh, well, what's it going for? Can I get a breakdown of the budget, etc.? And they were all suddenly hesitant if you asked for like $20, but they're talking about how they would throw down their lives in a second for a revolution. So you can see why someone like me might be a little bit skeptical of people like that. But I mean, that's like the easiest thing in the world to do to help a struggling third world group. $20 from you and 4 of your friends would be a godsend to them. And it doesn't require any real effort on your part. But aside from that, what can you do in the first world? Well, the Black Panthers used the American Bill of Rights as a way of taking advantage of the contradictions within the American capitalist republic. Guns are an inherent right, but what would be used in a revolution? Guns. So what we have is a contradiction in the first world. We have the right to guns, but guns are a threat to the republic. And I kind of believe that's the way it was intentionally set up. I believe that's what the Founding Fathers wanted. You can quote me, well-regulated militia and all that, whatever, but the continuing of bearing arms is a right, and that right is primarily based on self-defense. And you can quote Thomas Jefferson all night long. The tree of liberty grows out of the blood of patriots and tyrants, whatever. I can't remember the exact quote, but you know the quote I'm talking about. So the system has to have these guns as a right, but is also a threat to the system. And the Black Panthers use that. They use the Bill of Rights in order to enforce their own rights as human beings, which ironically is exactly what the right to bear arms was essentially meant for. In a manner of speaking, I'm sure they didn't think rights extended to black people, but you know what I mean. Other people feel that it's a good idea to sabotage first world countries by any means necessary. Weaken the system to the point where it breaks, a la accelerationists. Now, I have never particularly felt that accelerationism was the right tactic, although despite being repeatedly accused of it by places like our socialism. I can understand from the first worldist logic, that makes sense. I mean, if you're in the first world, you got to know the American people today are not gonna rise up. You've got people lining up day and night to go ride Bernie Sanders, AOC, and these phonies that call themselves socialists. And in the logic of first worldism, that perfectly makes sense. Make conditions better for yourself. And you can do that without even having to struggle. Which is why Lenin warned about the social democracies. So it would seem that if you were a first worldist and you really did want revolution, acceleration would be the way to go. It's not my personal choice because I am a third worldist and I would place more emphasis on helping third world communities rather than trying to forward the revolutionary potential of the first world. But if that's something you want to do, you know, to quote Cenk Uygur, have at it, Haas. That's gonna be your thing. But I think one thing that ties us all together, that makes this important, but the thing that would tie all three of these positions together, is the need to take an international stance. We must aid the third world whenever they require it so they could shake off first world domination that holds them back. And I believe that the best way to do that in the first world, not just, material support, cash to third world revolution when possible, but what you can do here is anti-war work. Whatever it takes to stop the wars. If you found a candidate that actually was anti-war, vote for them. But I suppose the real struggle there is figuring out who actually is honest and who's just saying that in order to get elected. We remember how much Obama was speaking against the wars and speaking against Guantanamo Bay the entire time, and he carried out what was it, 3 or 4 wars under his presidency were started? So I think that's an important thing. General public pressure against the wars might be enough. I don't think it may be entirely necessary to go after particular politicians and push them to do it, but if you created a general wave against the war, that would be something that would be very positive, and hopefully could work in the future. Because we do have to understand that social democracy holds us back. In the end, they're going to bribe first world people as much as they can, and they have every ability to do so. Look at the amount of wealth that's centered in the 1% of the United States. Even a small percentage of that. Let's say you tax them, and by tax I mean they actually pay the tax, like 10%. That would open up an astronomical amount of value that could be used to increase the lives of regular, everyday, ordinary Americans. You wouldn't even have to even go into a social democracy. These people have so much money. They have so much value stored up in, different things, gold stocks, bonds, whatever, offshore bank accounts, etc. That you wouldn't even have to do anything radical. They may see it as radical as having to actually pay tax. But it's very, very possible. Or hell, go after the wealth of the churches, the mega churches. And those guys are hoarding hundreds of millions of dollars. But, I have the camel, I have the needle, camel and all that, you know what I mean? So I think that they can always bribe you with that. And it's always, because Lenin did warn us about this, about social democracy, etc. But I think it's important to remember that if you're going to do this struggle in the first world, to keep in mind the lessons of the past, the people who came before us. Now, the Panthers fell because of two primary reasons. Maybe three. They allowed themselves to be. They eventually got infiltrated by COINTELPRO. And we know those people are out there. And COINTELPRO is not a conspiracy theory. We know that it's a thing. Their documents are out there. The U.S. government has admitted that they exist, and they're to undermine anyone who's a threat to the status quo. So no claiming this is a conspiracy theory. The other mistake they made was trying to infiltrate the system, which allowed for the softening of their organization. Well, they tried putting up candidates to run, and then when you work within the system, you don't change the system changes you. And I think that's a lesson that really needs to be learned. And two, I think that they're turning into a drug trade and organized crime also significantly harm them in many ways. That's a tactic that some organizations feel is something that they need to do, etc. For example, this didn't work for the Black Panthers, but it worked for the FARC, amazingly. And I don't buy this crap that the FARC never engaged in the drug trade, although there's no evidence that they do. Frankly, if the FARC didn't have anything to do with the drug trade, they'd be fools. You're going to turn down tens of millions of dollars to fund your revolution because of some people crying about morals, and morals about a party drug? A party drug that first world people are using anyway? Who cares? But I think it's a little bit of a difference when you're doing it in the first world as opposed to doing it in the third world. And I think the experience of the Panthers certainly does speak to that. Now, the whole reason I want to say this is because I don't want anybody thinking that there's nothing that they can do. This happens. The situation looks hopeless. It looks to a lot of people like nothing is ever going to happen. It's over and that they should quit. And a lot of people drop out of this movement, particularly in the first world, due to that kind of frustration that nothing is ever going to happen. So I want people to know that there is something they can do. There is something that you can push to help make the world better. Hell, look at the Black Bloc. I mean, there are always Nazis there to fight, and that's a great thing to do. You know, bash the fash all night long. So in the very least, there's that. And that's always going to be beneficial, no matter what. But I don't want anybody really feeling like there's nothing they can do. Don't feel powerless. That's what COINTELPRO wants. That's what the capitalist class wants you to feel. They want you to think that there's nothing you can do and that you just have to give up. Don't give them that. Don't let them have that. There is always something you can do in one way, one shape, or another. And hopefully, my words here have given you at least something you can possibly do. Even if you insist on being first worldist, there's always something you can do there. You know, I've laid that out in this video, etc. So no matter what, don't let them make you feel hopeless, because you're not. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.